Well, hi, folks. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here, wilhitewx.com. Wanted to bring you a video update. We've got a lot of rain coming into the lower Ohio Valley this weekend, and winter storm to our north. Not going to affect us here in the lower Ohio Valley, but some portions of the Midwest going to get hammered with this. It looks like a heavy rain event for us, but then next week is going to turn much colder once again, and we have some potential wintry mischief threats coming along with that. So we'll examine that and talk about December and how things are looking at this point right here. Be sure to follow me for more frequent updates on Twitter at WilhiteWX. All right, so let's just start off with the high-res NAM, and let's just look at what's going on this weekend. It is the 29th of November. It's a Thursday, 2018 here as I'm recording this. We got some showers that are going to come through tonight. It's nothing major here into the Ohio Valley tonight, but some showers will roll through during the overnight hours. Friday doesn't really look like that bad of a day. We stay mostly dry, but then notice this heavy rain potential. It's going to certainly start to get a little bit more windy as we go through the day on Friday. When you see these isobar lines here just getting closer together like that, that's indicating stronger wind speeds here. And the wind starts to come in. The rain comes with it. So this is Friday night into the overnight hours. It looks like it could be a pretty heavy rain event. If you've got plans on Saturday morning at this time looks like a washout here in the Ohio Valley right now. Possibly not down here in Kentucky, but certainly over southern Indiana, southern Illinois, western Kentucky. Just a good soaking worth of rain coming through here. It'll ease up a little bit in the afternoon, but that's whenever we're actually going to have to watch for some thunderstorms. And so, we had ridiculously cold temperatures earlier this week. We're looking to go ridiculously cold next week as well, but we kind of get into the 60s this weekend, possibly some upper 50s on Saturday, and then looking like we go into the 60s on Sunday. This is going to be one of those just potent storm system that's going to turn our winds out of the south, really pump that Gulf moisture in and pump our temperatures up as well. Storm-induced warmth is what we call it there. Now, on Saturday afternoon, we do need to watch for some possible severe thunderstorms. It's not a strong risk here, but the Storm Prediction Center does have us underneath of a marginal risk for severe weather over pretty much almost the whole state of Indiana and southern Illinois here as well. Western Kentucky from about Lexington on to the west there is underneath of this. So you've got a good chunk of the region here with this, and so we'll just have to watch and see if anything develops out of this as we go through. You notice that we're going to be awful doggone close to this low pressure, and notice the big winter storm up here, and this is going to be in a not quite the same path, but in a similar path that the winter storm just went through a few days ago up there. They're dealing with another one of those. But here's the reason why we have a marginal risk. What we're looking at here, the purpley collars that you're going to see on here is instability. It's CAPE, convective available potential energy. It's a measure of instability in the atmosphere. And then the wind barms here indicate your wind energy. We got plenty of wind energy coming. I already showed you those isobars are close together. So what that means is it's going to be really windy. But we're talking here with this wind barbs in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And watch this. As we get into the early morning hours on Saturday, we start to see that CAPE approaching here. We may, possibly in the afternoon hours, break out just enough sunshine that we get a little bit of instability build in here, especially over western Kentucky and southern and central portions of Illinois. Might build in here into portions of southern Indiana as well as we go throughout the evening times. We'll have the instability there along with the wind energy. That could be enough to fire off some thunderstorms, so it's something that we'll keep an eye on. But it's not a tremendous amount of energy. It's not a big risk at this point. Just something to note that's there. If it stays cloudy all day, we're probably going to be hard-pressed to get a severe thunderstorm around here. But there are hints in the data that we might, after that morning rain moves through, get some afternoon breaks in the clouds to get that. We'll see. I'm not really sold on that yet. It's usually very hard for us to do around here. So a marginal risk at this point, probably a pretty good call for that, and we'll see how it comes as we get a little bit closer to it. Here's the way the global models take this out. You can see there's the big rain event coming through here on the GFS, and there's that winter storm well off to our north there. That comes through. We get a break for Sunday. We'll dry out. Sunday looks like actually a pretty good day around here. We'll probably soar into the 60s. So it'd be a little bit breezy still, but not as bad as Saturday. And if you got some outdoor things to do, Sunday afternoon looks like a great time to be able to get that done. We're going to turn sharply colder, though, as we get into the early part of next week, though. So definitely get that work done Sunday afternoon if you can, because if you haven't done your Christmas lights outdoors and things like that, that would be a wonderful time to be able to get it done. The first part of next week is going to turn sharply colder. And watch this as we get into Monday. We have another disturbance starting to come down the pike. It's not really a big disturbance at this point. It might bring some scattered snow showers is what the GFS is wanting to bring it for us right now. The modeling has gone back and forth on this for this, Tuesday night sort of event. So right now it does not look like a very impressive big storm to me. It looks more, some of the models had developed it into a closed low and gave it into a very healthy winter storm. But they backed off that idea, and it looks more like just an open wave. It's just a disturbance moving through in the upper atmospheres, but it's going to be pretty dry. So we'll see how much this could squeak out. Right now, it doesn't look like anything significant. There is another storm system followed up behind that. And by the way, let's keep this into the mind. This is the 4th of December that we would have that weak disturbance move through. Now let's watch the next storm system roll in. So this is around the 7th through the 8th, right around in that time frame. And it's a low that moves down to our south. And notice how the GFS sort of develops it down here in the Four Corners region as the trough rounds the base. And it's more of a southern low on this. It does bring a nice swath of snow for us across the Ohio Valley here. Would be a nice little winter storm for us. And then it sort of moves it out to sea. Like that, there's really not much blocking going on up here, the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation. So there's nothing to force it up the East Coast, and here is the idea behind this particular model's runs. So we'll see. Let me show you the FV3. This is the test version of the GFS. It'll replace the operational GFS eventually. It shows sort of that same idea. It develops it out here, and it's more of a southern low. Does not bring the precipitation shield further up here. Why? Well, because notice you have the position of the high pressure much further south. It's a 1036 high or 1038 here, weaker, but it's located down here in Iowa. And if I just sort of go back up to here for that same time frame, what you notice here is it's a 1044 high on this particular model run, but it's positioned more out west. It allows that precipitation shield to come a little bit further north. So there's a lot of questions in here. The Canadian, by the way, for what it's worth, keeps the squelches it down towards the south from Tennessee and beyond as well. Now, I have some questions about that. One of the big reasons why is as we take a look at our indices, we find I don't see a big reason to suppress it completely far to our south. We'll have to see. Let me just show you the Euro real quick to give you an idea of what's going on here. There's a big rainmaker this weekend. There's the winter storm here, as you notice, for the northern plains and upper Midwest coming through here. Here's that weak little disturbance that moves through on Tuesday. It does have some snow showers. It's a little bit more boisterous with the snow showers than the other models, but still really nothing to write home about here. Just, a dusting, light coating kind of event at best here. We'll see. But then notice this. So you start to develop, you're rounding the base here. You're starting to develop the low pressure down there, but watch how this tracks it. It tracks it up and becomes a rain to snow, winter storm kind of setup right here for the Ohio Valley. And just sort of to illustrate what this is doing, basically it starts it sort of right up into here, and it rides the low pressure up here in a fashion very similar to this. Let me change my color on here. And notice that the other models develop it out to here and just sort of ride it out to sea. So the Euro in the red here is wanting to sort of cut this up as an Appalachian runner, and whereas some of the other three models here that I showed you wanting to take it more to the south. So more to the south would certainly have less of an impact on us. Cutting right up through this would have a pretty big impact on us. In fact, there could be, even if the temperatures are just right, depending on how strong that low is. That's what led to the icing setup that we saw, a couple of weeks ago in mid-November. So it's something worthwhile that we'll have to keep on monitoring. We don't know at this point, but it's worthwhile to keep on monitoring for there. Well, is there any idea as far as can we determine the pattern as to which may be right? Well, we got to take a look at our teleconnections, and that will help us to determine a few things. First off, notice here, this is the latest run of the EPS. This goes out for 46 days. Gives you an idea. We're looking at the Arctic Oscillation. When it's negative, that means cold air is on the move from Canada down towards the south. And we've got that. And we're going to stay in the negative through the early part of December. But watch how this starts to squeak back up and it goes into the positive. And our storm time here would be right around, say the 8th or 9th, right in there, which would put put it in this time frame right in here, right whenever the indices is wanting to go back from in the negative into the positive. That's an opportune time for a big storm system whenever you see the indices crossing like that oftentimes. But then from there, you notice that it just sort of stays neutral to slightly positive. It's not really blazingly up here in the positive, certainly not blazingly in the negative. That tells me that there's not a ton of cold air, but it's certainly not going to be just a blowtorch above normal either. Kind of indication is what that look would indicate for. December, if we look at the EPO, the East Pacific Oscillation, when it's in the negative, that's a huge ridge over Alaska. That usually indicates a very charged up Aleutian low and gives you a big ridge over Alaska, leads to a western ridge. Well, that's what you've got to open up to open up December and to get with that. But again, flipping that pattern here as you go into here would indicate that you maybe get a big storm system that will come through, and possibly a moderation period beyond that. You're seeing no blocking here with the North Atlantic Oscillation whenever it's in the neutral to positive phases here. It doesn't block out in Greenland, and that just allows things to skirt out to sea. If anything, this would be an indication that possibly more of a southern track may be a better idea on this than what the Euro currently has of sliding up as an APS runner because of the NAO being neutral to positive like this. That's something that we're just going to have to see. A lack of blocking would certainly allow it to just go out to sea, whereas if it's a deeper low, then it would start because of the way the low pressure spin counterclockwise, it would sort of want to curve that up and possibly be more of an APS runner. It just depends on how strong of a low pressure that you end up with this. And then, of course, the PNA staying pretty much neutral through the time frame as well. So all that to say, I don't think it's going to stay ridiculously cold forever as we get into here. In fact, there could be a little bit more of a moderation period. We're seeing that, by the way, if you look at the MJO forecast. This is the Madden-Julian Oscillation. So this is tropical forcing along the equator over the Indian Ocean and parts of the western Pacific Ocean. And so basically, phases 7, 8, 1, 8, 1, and 2 here are your winter cold phases. That tends to favor convection in the portions of the oceans that will favor colder temperatures for us. Whereas you get into phases 3 and 4, 5, 6, and 7, you get into those warmer phases with that. You can kind of see it in here. Here's your DJF temperature composites. Again, phases 8, 1, and 2, your cold phases, and they become a little bit more mild with this. Well, notice where we're going. So we are right here, right now, and let me turn on this again, and let me change from yellow over to red so that you can kind of see here. So here we are. We're starting off into here, and it has the 30th. Right in here, and so here's the first, there's the second, third, there's the fourth. You're starting to go into the last of the cold phases here around the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th or so, right around in here. But by the time you're crossing over, here's the 8th. So here's the 9th right in here. You're starting to cross from the 9th on to about the 15th or so, over possibly into phases 3 and 4 over here. And so this would be your warmer phases with this rather than your cold phase. So all that to say, it certainly could have a little bit of a moderation period coming on here, the way the MJO looks. And you can kind of see that from other things as well. If you look at the Bering Sea Rule, the Bering Sea Rule basically says that what happens in the Bering Sea correlates down to what happens here in the United States about 17 to 21 days later. Notice the 4th up here. Here's a storm system moving through, a northern system, so that might feature that weak open wave. If you go here onto about the 6th, 7th, right around in there, there's a southern low. That could give some credence rather to a southern low instead of an APS runner, we'll see. And then here's one around the 12th. That could be affecting us as well. Here's another around the 18th, between the 12th and the 18th. You notice the pattern changes over here. And you've got your jet stream configuration coming up a little bit more from the south. That certainly could feature warmer kinds of temperatures and give that moderation period for us. If you take a look at modeling data here as well, then you kind of see that same thing. Here's our modeled temperatures over the next few days, but watch how the cold spills back in a big way next week. You get to the end of it. By the time you get about to the mid-month here, you're starting to see that decline, and you're starting to see these warmer temperatures out here in the west start to bleed east. So that certainly gives some credence to some potentially warmer periods for us then there as well. If you just sort of dial it in here to Evansville, the area that I'm from here, you can kind of see that on the GFS ensemble as well. We get nice and warm this weekend. Then we go back down into a pretty cold period, but you start to moderate out in really mid-40s or so. Not that bad at all. Not blazingly blowtorch warm, certainly not cold either as you head towards the middle part of the month. Well, to recap, we got some rain coming this weekend, and then we got some winter storm chances next week. It'll be a little bit probably closer towards this weekend and beyond before we know a whole lot more about those. How much rain? We'll end on this. The NAM, by the way, I should have showed you this a little bit earlier when we were talking about the rain, but the NAM and the other global models here all suggesting about 1 to 2 inches of rain coming. So certainly a wet period coming up. That's it for this update, folks. I'll have another one for you out soon.